Wash your hands properly. Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally. Coronavirus, seriously, it took over the world practically. Stealing lives with no remedy. You pay everybody free of cautiously. Boys and girls, the entire family, help protect the weak country. Wash your hands properly. Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally.
In response to COVID-19, the government of Belize has implemented strict guidelines on persons to practice social distancing to reduce the spread and risk of getting COVID-19. Practicing social distancing is when one maintains a greater than usual distance away from another person. In public health, it is a practice to prevent sick persons from coming in close contact with healthy people. Recent studies are showing that social distance of 3 feet or more decreases the exposure of COVID-19. Before these restrictions, a person with COVID-19 could infect 2.5 persons in 5 days, 406 persons in 30 days. When you put into practice measures to reduce the exposure activities by half of that one infected person, in 5 days you would possibly only infect 1.25. 30 days, 15 persons. Reduce the exposure of that infected person by 75%. In 5 days, you infect 0.625. In 30 days, 2.5 persons. Remember, the virus does not move on its own. People move it. The more space between you and others, the harder it is for the virus to spread. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health. If you have been directly exposed to the new coronavirus or have a history of travel in infected populated areas, it is recommended that you self-quarantine. Identify a room to be used to self-quarantine and limit contact with healthy persons. Keep away from older persons and persons who have medical conditions that affects their immune system. Monitor for any cold or flu-like symptom for up to 21 days and wash hands frequently with soap and water. If you become seriously ill, call your healthcare provider or 0800-664-2273 for guidance. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health.
If you have a cough or a sneeze, cover up to the right thing, please. Boys and girls, the entire family, help protect the weak country. Wash your hands properly. Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally. Coronavirus, seriously, it took over the world practically. Stealing lives with no remedy. You pay everybody free of cautiously. Boys and girls, the entire family, help protect the weak country. Wash your hands properly. Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally.
In response to COVID-19, the government of Belize has implemented strict guidelines on persons to practice social distancing to reduce the spread and risk of getting COVID-19. Practicing social distancing is when one maintains a greater than usual distance away from another person. In public health, it is a practice to prevent sick persons from coming in close contact with healthy people. Recent studies are showing that social distance of 3 feet or more decreases the exposure of COVID-19. Before these restrictions, a person with COVID-19 could infect 2.5 persons in 5 days, 406 persons in 30 days. When you put into practice measures to reduce the exposure activities by half of that one infected person, in 5 days you would possibly only infect 1.25. 30 days, 15 persons. Reduce the exposure of that infected person by 75%. In 5 days, you infect 0.625. In 30 days, 2.5 persons. Remember, the virus does not move on its own. People move it. The more space between you and others, the harder it is for the virus to spread. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health. If you have been directly exposed to the new coronavirus or have a history of travel in infected populated areas, it is recommended that you self-quarantine. Identify a room to be used to self-quarantine and limit contact with healthy persons. Keep away from older persons and persons who have medical conditions that affects their immune system. Monitor for any cold or flu-like symptom for up to 21 days and wash hands frequently with soap and water. If you become seriously ill, call your healthcare provider or 0800-664-2273 for guidance. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health.
If you have a cough or a sneeze, cover up to the right thing, please. Boys and girls, the entire family, help protect the weak country. Wash your hands properly. Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally. Coronavirus, seriously, it took over the world practically. Stealing lives with no remedy. Yeah, pay everybody free up cautiously. Boys and girls, the entire family, help protect the weak country. Wash your hands properly. Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally.
In response to COVID-19, the government of Belize has implemented strict guidelines on persons to practice social distancing to reduce the spread and risk of getting COVID-19. Practicing social distancing is when one maintains a greater than usual distance away from another person. In public health, it is a practice to prevent sick persons from coming in close contact with healthy people. Recent studies are showing that social distance of 3 feet or more decreases the exposure of COVID-19. Before these restrictions, a person with COVID-19 could infect 2.5 persons in 5 days, 406 persons in 30 days. When you put into practice measures to reduce the exposure activities by half of that one infected person, in 5 days you would possibly only infect 1.25. 30 days, 15 persons. Reduce the exposure of that infected person by 75%. In 5 days, you infect 0.625. In 30 days, 2.5 persons. Remember, the virus does not move on its own. People move it. The more space between you and others, the harder it is for the virus to spread. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health. If you have been directly exposed to the new coronavirus or have a history of travel in infected populated areas, it is recommended that you self-quarantine. Identify a room to be used to self-quarantine and limit contact with healthy persons. Keep away from older persons and persons who have medical conditions that affects their immune system. Monitor for any cold or flu-like symptom for up to 21 days and wash hands frequently with soap and water. If you become seriously ill, call your healthcare provider or 0800-664-2273 for guidance. A health and wellness message from your Ministry of Health.
If you have a cough or a sneeze, cover up, do the right thing, please. Boys and girls, the entire family, help protect the weak country. Wash your hands properly. Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally. Coronavirus, seriously, it took over the world practically. Stealing lives with no remedy. We obey everybody, we are cautiously. Boys and girls, the entire family, help protect the weak country. Wash your hands properly. Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally.
In response to COVID-19, the government of Belize has implemented strict guidelines on persons to practice social distancing.
Good morning, Belize, and welcome to another episode of Ask the Experts. This morning we have with us none other than our Deputy Chief Education Officer with responsibility for service areas, Dr. Neulin Villanueva. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you very much, Ms. Casey, and good morning to our viewers.
How has it been so far?
A lot of work. I think the ministry has been working just as hard as when schools are open, or even
Right.
harder in some cases. But of course, it's a work that we love to do. So
Exactly.
It's okay.
I know this week has been an extremely active week for the ministry as we officially launched our radio broadcast via various media platforms. Perhaps we could start the conversation with you telling us a little bit about where we are in terms of our online activities and particularly our radio broadcasts.
okay, definitely. So in response to the school closure and to ensure that students continue to learn, we've come up with several strategies. First of all, at the preschool and primary level, we have 3 different activities going on.
Right.
First of all, for those families, students, parents that have access to the internet, we have daily lessons posted on the ministry's website at www.moe.gov.bz. And there are 3 types of activities posted there. There are some activities that are print-based, so you could print and have the student complete the activity sheet. There are some that are more interactive and online. And we also have posted our radio lessons. And the radio lessons are, of course, those are the second type of activities that we've put together. These radio lessons are being aired on a number of radio stations, including Wave FM, Reef Radio, Sugar City, Rainbow FM, Toledo Christian, Christian Faith Ministries, Maximum Radio, and also on Love FM, Fiesta Radio, and Crim. And we've been posting up the times for those particular radio broadcasts.
I know yesterday particularly I've been getting quite a lot of questions in regards to the schedule for Love FM. And we want our viewers and our followers to know that we are at the moment fine-tuning that particular schedule. And as soon as we have confirmed, then we're going to be making a post via our website and, of course, our Facebook page.
Yes, certainly. For most of the radio stations, they're doing 4 different sessions. So there's a preschool and infant 1 and infant 2, 45-minute lesson. Then there's one for standard 1 and standard 2 that usually follows immediately. And then standard 3 and 4 and standard 5 and 6. So there's 4 time slots. Right now on Love FM, we have the first 2 groups, so the preschool, infant 1 and infant 2, and the standard 1 and standard 2. But like you're saying, we're communicating, discussing with Love FM to see how we could get those other slots filled.
Exactly. You've spoken a bit about our pre-primary and primary resources, but what of our high schoolers and even our IT vets across the country?
First of all, there's one other strategy we're using for the preschool and primary, and that's some print resources. So to go along with the radio broadcasts, we've printed some lessons for preschool up to standard 6, right, and those are being distributed this week. They will be placed mostly in prime grocery stores across the country, and as soon as we finalize that list, we'll be advertising the specific locations that you can find those resources. So that's for the primary. You have the online website, you have the radio broadcast, and you also have the print material. At the secondary level now, and TVET, each school is developing what's called a learning continuity plan, and that includes the content that they plan to continue with for the rest of the school year. We don't know if school will reopen before the end of the school year, but we've asked them to plan in that eventuality. And so they will be specifying that content. We've asked to make sure that the programs that they develop does not entail having students sit from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. in front of a computer. They are to give us information on the number of students that have access to what they're asking for, and to make sure they make accommodations for those students who do not. So those plans are coming into us. I believe we should have all of them by Friday to review and give our feedback. In addition to that, a number of schools and the IT vets have collaborated on a learning package that's called the Learner's Link. And so it's a newsprint with information and activities, content and activities in several subject areas. And those, again, will be available this week for students to pick up. Again, it's going, for most districts, it's going to be in the major grocery stores. So the idea is when persons go to pick up groceries, they can pick up a copy of that publication as well.
Right, and I think it's important also just to remind our parents or guardians out there how essential these packages are going to be, but primarily for those of our students who might not have access to internet or radio. So we want to ask for your cooperation in if it is that you have access to our online resources or radio to tune in or what have you, then we're asking that we try as best as possible not to tap into this particular resource that we're going to be having for our secondary and TVET students.
Yes, thank you for saying that, Ms. Casey, because our efforts really are aimed at reaching each student.
Right.
And so the print copies, the copies of the material that we're printing will also be available on the website. So those who have access, electronic access, we're asking them to print for themselves and leave the paper copies for those who may not have access otherwise. We'd really appreciate that.
Yeah. So while we are on the topic of high school and TVET, perhaps this would be a good time to bring to the fore the idea of promotion, particularly when it comes to high schoolers who are in fourth form. Talk to us a little bit about what are we really saying?
All right, good question. We do need to clarify that information that has been out. What we did was look at what our regulations are with regards to promotion and graduation. And if you look at Education Rule 128, what it actually says is that as far as is practicable, the prescribed work for each grade level in primary schools should be completed by the end of the school year, but continuity of learning should be ensured throughout a division and level. So the spirit of that regulation really is that, yes, there is prescribed work for each grade level, and we should do our best to try to meet that. However, the expectation is that all students will not meet those requirements, and they're expected, even when they are promoted, to be given the opportunity to come up to speed with that. And even more, the second part of that rule says that in the case of primary schools, students shall normally be allowed to progress each year to the next grade level, and that schools shall develop special assistance programs for students who do not meet some of the expected outcomes at the end of the grade or division. So repetition really should be an expectation, not the rule, but an exception, right? So it really should be not applied when students are maybe barely there and they have the opportunity to really bring up, because we know students learn at different rates. And when you hold back a child for an entire year, perhaps just for a few grades, it has other consequences. We're not just teaching the child in a cognitive way, but there are socio and emotional effects as well. And falling behind does show through research that it has long-term implications. Many students who repeat, especially those who repeat twice, end up not completing school. So it's something that schools should really take seriously. And also, the third section of that rule actually says that a primary school shall be required to keep on its enrollment any student who has completed the final year of primary schooling but who does not meet the standard for primary certification, provided that the student is less than 14 years of age. So if it is that the school has put in place measures to assist that child throughout, so they've promoted, but at standard 6, they are clearly well below what the expectations are. It's okay not to graduate that child, as long as that they're not age 14. But once a child reaches standard 6 and they're 14 years of age, the regulation says that they should be transitioned out of primary school and their certificate should be given. That is the current education rules.
Right.
Now that's for the primary level, and I think that was what was emphasized by our communication on that topic. Now at the secondary level, it's completely different. The regulation says that at the end of the year, secondary schools shall determine, according to their academic policies and assessment practices, students who are to be promoted to the next grade level, and in the case of students who are in the final year of studies, those who have successfully completed the program of studies and are to be certified. So in no way at the secondary level is there automatic promotion and graduation, and the Ministry of Education cannot impose that. However, what we have asked the managing authorities, since they're the authority on this, to do is to look at their regulations. There are some requirements in the school rules, for example, for community service. Students could not have completed that requirement. There are some that require diploma exams. and those would have been scheduled during the time of school closure. So of course, we're asking for some flexibility in those regards. And also, because students are in a disadvantaged position currently, they don't have the support of their teachers face-to-face, and that, extra support they would have been given. We're asking that schools also be flexible in terms of providing students with sufficient opportunities to give them a good chance of being promoted and graduating. So that is our position.
Right. Just to add a little bit in terms of our IT vet trainees, which is in fact has an entirely different structure. How is that going to work out for those trainees?
Well, definitely in the IT vet system, none of the promotion or graduation or certification, as they call it, cannot apply. These students, the trainees, are expected to complete their practical and on-the-job training whenever school reopens. So they will continue with their program whenever school reopens.
Well, because it is a competency-based system, correct?
Correct.
Interesting. Well, thank you for clearing that up. I think another pressing concern that I've been getting quite a lot is in relation to those of our student teachers who have in fact, like our other teachers, been impacted by this. What is the position going forward for these teachers?
Okay, well, in the case of student teachers, the external assessment would normally have been done during that period of school closure.
Right.
However, those students would have done the bulk of their work to qualify them to be certified. And so what the ministry is planning to do is to look at the internal assessment grades, because there is an internal assessment and then there's the external assessment. And while we may not be able to visit teachers, we will do an external assessment based on their portfolios, their lesson plans and unit plans that they've developed as part of that internship course. And we're comfortable with this because in most cases, the internal assessments have correlated with our external assessments. So we believe that is the fair way to go. Otherwise, those student teachers would need to return in the following semester to complete just that component.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Now, while we are on the topic of teachers, I know I've been making several posts in regards to our TEDS unit, and they have been stepping up in terms of providing online resources or online training for our teachers in terms of CPDs. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay, so for the most part, although at the secondary level, a lot of our teachers would be engaged with student learning, at the primary level, it's not so much. And so what we've asked teachers to do is to use this opportunity to gain continuing professional development hours. As you know, our teachers with full licenses are required to do 120 hours of CPD within a 5-year period. And so this is an opportunity to focus on that. And I'm very excited to share that the ministry actually has developed a number of CPD courses, online CPD courses. There are 2 right now that we're advertising. There is one called Thriving in Uncertain Times that I'm really excited about. It says making your well-being a priority, and what that will cover is several areas of wellness: mental, emotional, physical, and financial. And so we have some really excellent coordinators that are collaborating with us. We have Jeremy Enriquez, who is a mindfulness coach, who will be leading that session on mental wellness. We have Mrs. Krista Courtney, who is a mental health counselor, who will be looking at emotional wellness. We have Ms. Farah Marchand, who is a Sagicor insurance advisor, and she'll be doing the financial aspect. And we have a power team of Ms. Karen Rosito, who is a fitness instructor and nutritionist, and Sean Quilin, the chef, who will be looking at physical wellness. So I'm very excited about that. And the other course is on digital learning, and we have two of our local instructors, Mr. Hector Castellanos from Belmopan Comprehensive and Mr. Louis Underwood, who I think he's from Ladyville Technical High School. Sorry if I got that wrong, Mr. Underwood. And they'll be teaming up with some Belizean American professors, Dr. Kendra Flores and Dr. Carla Thornton. And they will be looking at digital platforms and how you do editing and publishing online, and also transitioning to online learning. So each of those courses will be worth 25 CPD hours. They're going to run over a 6-week period starting on May 4th. And registration is now ongoing. And I can tell you we have 3,000 teachers already registered for those courses.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yes.
So perhaps you would want to take a little bit of time to talk about how we can have more teachers register?
Well, sure. The registration link, if you go to our website, moe.gov.bz, there is a link there. We'll also be sharing these frequently asked questions with the on the website, so you can get a direct link to the CPD page. But it's easy to register, and you will get an email with all the information once you register about the course.
Now, are these the only set of CPD that are going to be available?
Oh,
for
no.
teachers?
So teachers who are not able to do this, these two programs, and by the way, the two courses that I mentioned are available for teachers at all levels. We have a list of pre-approved CPD courses on the website as well. So if you go to our website and navigate to the CPD section, you'll be able to see online courses that are available that have been pre-approved by our Teacher Education Development Services. And outside of that, if a teacher finds a particular course that they would like to do that they don't know if it's appropriate or it will be credited, we're asking them to email TEDS. It's TEDS@moe.gov.bz. What we would need is the name of the provider, because we have to make sure it's an accredited provider, and also the details of the course. We need to look at the content, and we will be able to give you information on whether or not, you know, that's an okay program for you to take. All we're asking is that you give us at least 3 weeks to do the investigation and give you some feedback. So at least 3 weeks before you plan on taking the course, if we could get that information, that would be good.
Sounds pretty good. Let's end off this portion of our conversation on the matter of teacher license applications. I know we've made a recent post directing teachers to our website to apply for electronically. What's the latest with that?
Okay, so we have been getting the electronic submissions. Because of the regulations, it does not allow a teacher to be teaching within our system without a valid teacher's license. Okay. And so that's one of the essential services that the ministry has to keep going. What we've asked teachers to do is to send in, to complete the application form, which can be found on our website. And that application form can then be downloaded and sent along with the appropriate documents to the email address of the district education manager. And again, we'll post this information. If you do not have that, you can get the information on our website. What will happen is that once we receive that application, it's going to be processed by our teacher administrative services, and you will get an electronic copy. Now, the certified, the actual copy of your license will not be given to you until our office is open, and at that time, you will be asked to bring your authenticated documents, but in the meantime, we would have issued an electronic copy just to safeguard in terms of your employment status,
Okay,
right?
great. We're going to ask if we could put up on the screen just the flyer that we've been circulating as a guide.
Okay, sure.
So in the meantime, though, perhaps we could get into some of our questions
Sure.
that we have for you, Doc. And of course, I think we addressed this in particular. When will the primary school and high school work booklet be distributed and where? So perhaps we could just, reiterate.
Okay. Like I've said,
Yeah.
it's hard to list all the locations, but it's mainly the in this forum, but it's mainly your primary grocery stores in each district. In the case of rural communities, please check with the alcalde of those communities. It will take us a couple days to get everything in place for this first issue. So just give us some time and we'll be circulating the specific locations for those. But we definitely will share that information so that parents can know where to get it. And once we get those locations in, every 2 weeks, then you check back at those locations for the prints. We've also been sharing the information with principals, so you can always check with your principal to see where the closest location is for you to pick up the prints.
All right, we have another question that's asking for a direct line for the Teacher Education and Development Services.
Sure. For Teacher Education and Development Services, the number is 615-0307. 615-0307. And that's for anything to do with professional development programs. If it is you're looking at licenses or employment status, then the place to call is the Teacher Administrative Services, and their number is 615-7369. So for employment status and leaves and licenses, the Teacher Administrative Services. The first line, though, if you're just doing the application, then you would call your district education manager. I don't know if we want to post those numbers or should we?
I think we are going to put up shortly their email addresses.
Okay, good.
That they can be easily accessed by.
So if you're just applying, then the best place to call or to email would be the district education manager. But if you've already applied and you want to know your status, then the Teacher Administrative Services.
Another question, someone is asking if it would be okay for them to register for more than one course if they have in fact registered for.
Of course, both courses, you can register for both courses, and that would mean if you complete all the requirements, you would be able to get 50 CPD hours in this 6-week session. It runs from May 4th to the middle of June. And just for some clarity, the sessions are asynchronous, meaning that you can go on and look at the videos or the content and do the assignments at your own time, at your own pace. So there won't be a session that you have to log on at 9 a.m. or 2 p.m. or something like that. So if you have the time and the energy to do both courses, please do.
In terms of the CPDs, are these going to be categorized on a base level?
On a base level, like I said, for these two courses, they apply to any level from early childhood, primary, secondary, and TVET. So anyone can take them. For the list that we have on other online CPDs, what we've done is categorized at what level it would apply. So you will see when you go to that site that some state primary, some state early childhood, some state secondary, and so on.
Okay. What happens to persons who have applied for study leave since last year and have gotten response from universities, but their management saying no, and now the ministry is asking for a deferral?
Okay, well, the details of that has to be worked out. As you know, for study leave, once we approve study leave, there needs to be a replacement teacher. and we understand what the economic situation is right now, so there might need to be a revisiting of that, but more information will be coming forth soon on what the status of that will be. We are still learning what the budget for the Ministry of Education will be, and so we'll have to sit down to determine what we will be able to do in terms of study leave. Unfortunately, that is the reality.
We have another question that's asking about the role of school counselors during this time.
Okay, one of the things that we've tried to do is to include, especially at the secondary level, most secondary schools have a counselor. And in the learning continuity plan, we've asked that schools put in place some type of psychosocial support. So instead of just getting content on math or English or science, some of the sessions that the high school students will be engaged in would be on psychosocial support, different areas of wellness. I've seen that some high schools have also provided like hotlines for counseling services. Counselors in the, for example, in the Learner's Link, which is the secondary publication that the schools have collaborated on, there are life skills lessons in there as well, and those have primarily come from the school counselors. In the radio broadcast as well, we've included lessons on different aspects of wellness and character building, and so we have tried to ensure that the socio-emotional development and needs of students are being addressed as well.
There's another question that's asking about high schools and if we could provide a link for different high schools, particularly CCC, in terms of application forms.
All right, what we've had, that is definitely a request that we can make to the Principals Association of Secondary Schools. We have asked that these schools delay their application deadlines given the situation, and also for the payments. We haven't gotten any feedback as yet on what those plans are, but that's definitely a good suggestion for those who have not had an electronic application format, for them to move to that. So that's a suggestion we can take to the secondary school principals.
Would the same carry for tertiary institutions, for students who are in fact in the process of applying? I know for one, I got a question asking, the University of Belize has provided an online platform to apply. However, the application is not processed until you can provide evidence of deposits made for the application process.
Okay, so I'm not sure what their deadline was and if that has been delayed, but we can check on that to see if there has been some movement in terms of our recommendations. Definitely, it's not an ideal situation. We will have to look at what the impact is on enrollment. There's definitely going to be some impact, and we've been in discussions within the ministry on how we can strategize to support students going into the next school year, those transitioning to high school as well as to the tertiary level.
All right, someone is asking, what about those teachers who live in the remote parts of the country? How are they expected to access the CPD, online CPD resources?
Unfortunately, there's very little we can do in that situation. There is no paper distance, CPDs that we've developed. So remember, these two, the two courses and the online CPDs are not mandatory, and so there will be other opportunities to do this as well. There will be other offerings of this particular CPD as well, and so when teachers have access again, perhaps they will be able to access those, but there's no easy answer to that. It's when it's not accessible, and that is why, for example, we know that is the situation for students as well, and that's why we've provided the print resources, and we're trying to reach every corner of the country as much as we can.
Okay. We have another question in regard to our counselors. If a teacher or counselor got a new job and he or she was to be evaluated come this period where school is now closed, but because of the current situation, what will become of their employment come August?
Okay, well, there's no way to go around that except that there will have to be an evaluation later on. So that's something that the Teaching Service Commission and the Teacher Administrative Service will need to work around given the situation. But that's, it's good to have flagged that particular issue so that we can address it.
Okay. This question has to do with our students who are abroad studying. I know recently the Prime Minister was asked about his position for those students who are abroad and who want to come home, and he did say that there are going to be considerations made. We have to for those situations. The question is, what is the Ministry of Education's position on the repatriation of students to Belize?
Well, what we've been discussing is that we do have, I think the first priority for us are those students that we have right now that are on scholarships and grants from us. So we've been discussing how we can continue to support them, perhaps where the resources might not be there for them to remain in the U.S. With the cost of accommodations and so on. A lot of the universities are moving courses online, so there's a possibility that they would be able to do online, which would reduce their costs. And even for our students, if there's an opportunity for that, then that can be considered. And it's not only the current students, but we have a number of scholarships that we offer every year. And so we've been discussing, well, how will we support, given perhaps reduced budgets? How do we continue to support tertiary education, because it's so key to our development? So all of those things are in discussion, and as we come to conclusions and consensus and get approval, the required approval, we will be making that information available.
I need to take this opportunity, of course, to recognize that, in fact, we don't only have students in the States. Right. We have students who are in Cuba, we have students, right, I mean, all over the world, who are, of course, waiting and hoping that there is some resolution in the near future for them to return home.
Yes, correct.
There is another question here that, of course, is saying Pathlight is offering CPDs. That's right. I think we also shared a post here on our social media platform.
A link to the professional development courses offered by Pathlight can also be found on the Ministry of Education Education's website, right, as well.
The question is, though they are offering those online courses now, are those courses going to be offered or any other after June?
Right. Definitely, those courses will be offered again. We will inform you of the particular schedule. And we're looking at, we normally have an August CPD session, right, that's very big, and that most teachers would take at least one CPD in. So we have a committee working on looking at what CPD courses that were scheduled for August we could convert to online. And these two courses have been building our internal capacity to develop these online CPDs. And so we're going to see how these next 6 weeks go, and to be able to fine-tune and do that format more regularly. So we are planning to have more offerings in August, definitely, and those will be communicated to everyone.
Mm-hmm. We have a question here asking for some support. They've applied for MOE CPDs, but unfortunately have not yet gotten a confirmation. How do we know if we have been accepted or not? I have applied twice.
Okay.
Yet no confirmation.
Please call the director at 615 0307 to get that information sorted out. We know that at least 3,000 persons have gotten through, so I'm not sure what the particular situation is, but if you call Mrs. Jeannie Garbott at 615-0307, she would be able to assist.
Right, and we just want to take the opportunity, of course, to remind our viewers and our potential scholarship recipients in terms of the Cuba scholarship that the deadline has been extended, and of course, we're going to let you all know exactly when the new date is via our Facebook platform. Doc, is there anything we might have missed so far that you want us to go back and spend a little bit more time on?
No, I think we've covered more or less what I had wanted to share. Just perhaps a reminder, if you have concerns outside of what we've discussed, there is an MOE hotline, and the numbers are 615-7597 and 615-7402. 615-7597 or 615-7402. And if you don't get through right away, please call back again because the person's running that hotline, we need to stay informed, so sometimes we're in meetings, but we come back and we will address whatever concerns you have.
Great. So let's take the opportunity then just to go over again the different platforms that we are currently using to provide online resources to our students.
All right. First of all, we have the for the primary and preschool level, we have the MOE website with lots of resources updated daily. So that's one option. The second option, please listen in to the radio stations. I want to congratulate our teachers. We have over 90 teachers that have been working, and these are not professional people. Of course, they're professional teachers, but in terms of video editing and production, they've really risen to the challenge. And so I want us to really appreciate their work. There might be some glitches here and there, and we've been getting both positive feedback and constructive criticism. And so we'll take those to improve as we go along. And so that's the radio lessons. And we also have people working on the print version of those radio lessons. Apologies for whatever errors might be in there. We'll definitely work harder to correct that. And then for the secondary level, of course, we have each individual school's learning continuity plan. Some of them are able to do a lot online. Some are using the print material, and the information on that distribution is going to be coming very shortly.
All right. And of course, we want to remind our viewers to, I know this is a very critical time where there's a lot of fake news going left, right, and center, but we're asking you to tune in to the sources that you can trust, which is either the Government of Belize Press Office or the Ministry of Education's website or Facebook page during these very important times. We try to maintain a constant traffic in terms of what we're uploading, just to keep our parents, our students updated with what we're doing in education for Belize. We're looking at another question here, and this one is asking about payment for teachers.
Okay, well, I know the payment for teachers, the schedule is that was sent to us. It's supposed to be today, the 29th, and so those should be in the banks and credit unions by this evening.
Sounds like good news.
Yes.
All right, so we are wrapping up. Doc, any final words?
Yes,
comments?
I forgot to big up our education officers from the service areas and the district education centers. You're doing amazing work, and thank you so much for rising to the challenge to make this work and for supporting our students.
Yes, I have to say, I mean, being a part of our chat groups, I mean, these are your teachers, your education officers who have stepped out of the box and have put themselves to try something new. I don't like to talk about, well, it's good that this happened, we're in this situation. Not at all. But really and truly, it has allowed for room for our education officers, for the ministry to in fact grow. I mean, I'm certain in our plans we have always thought about this is where we're going to go, but under these circumstances, I mean, I can only look forward to bigger and better things in terms of distance education and how we are able to in fact get initiatives like these on the go.
Definitely.
So I guess we are getting ready to close off our session for today. Of course, we want to extend a big thank you to our viewers, our followers, especially those who have been extremely supportive via our Facebook page. I mean, sometimes it thrills me to read some of the comments. But certainly thank you to the parents who have continued to give support for the efforts that we are making, we will continue to make during this crisis. Remember, of course, to practice safe distancing, keep yourselves and your families safe by staying at home. Regularly wash your hands when you cough and sneeze. Do so in your elbows or in a tissue and throw that away immediately. If you have any concerns, please remember to call our hotline. I think we can put it up on the screen, or perhaps you want to just mention it back.
It's 615-7597 and 615-7402.
That's right. And of course, our hotline remains open for the Ministry of Health at 1-800-MOH-CARE and our website at www.covid19.belize for up-to-date information. Until then, thank you for joining us, Belize. Thanks again for being a part of this morning's session.
Welcome. Thank you too.
For our regular hello to everyone. Hello to everyone from WHO headquarters here in Geneva. My name is Tariq and we welcome you for our regular press briefing on COVID-19.